Cool.
And we're live, and we're live, and we're live. Well, good evening, and welcome to episode number 72 of Life is People. And well, tonight this is a real bridging of the gaps, and we're connecting kind of continents and people, and the very essence of I think the Safe Coin and Safe Network and MaidSafe in general is all about, really. It's just about connecting people. So, without any further ado, I think maybe what we want to do is go through everybody here. But this is the Melbourne MaidSafe team crew. So what I think we're going to do is go from left and right. We'll start with Catherine. If you go through one by one, introduce yourselves, and then we can just take it from there. So we start from Catherine on the left. Tell us who you are and sort of like just but basically what you do in the MaidSafe crew. And that's a great way to start.
Sure. Hi, Tim. Troon, I actually work for RMIT University, and my specialisation is Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And as part of that, I've sort of moved into the MaidSafe space and have done some work with Peter Robinson on trying to develop the idea of a development community here. And so we've got students working on that. So I'm just a supporter.
Perfect. And Peter?
Greetings, Tim. How are you?
I'm really good, man. It's been good to talk to you finally. Like I say, because we've been speaking a bit and connecting a bit on the forum, and so and I know you're the you have a particular interest in MaidSafe, and I know you were saying last night not overly up to speed with everything that's going on, but join the same boat. We're all in that same one. I don't know exactly what's going on day to day, but so again, how did you sort of what's your connection with the MaidSafe Melbourne pod, just so people like Rich and everyone listening can know.
Okay, well, I'm a web developer, and I became interested in Bitcoin initially and realized it wasn't just all about money, and started to peer underneath the covers there and see some of the potentials that went with the blockchain. But then as soon as I started to hear David Irvin and some of his colleagues speaking, and got the sense of what the Safe Network is really about, it just clicked. I mean, it makes enormous sense. I think one of the things that stands out for me is David's assertion that nothing in nature is centralized. And while I really appreciate Bitcoin and the context that it's created for everything crypto that's come since, I still see some issues with the blockchain. And we're now in the Safe Network free even of the blockchain, which is the one sort of, while it's not a centralized component, it is such a visible thing that it has undermined the idea of privacy and security and safety for individuals. So I'm just so behind all of those values. That's simply where I'm coming from.
No, that's great. Perfect. And next along, next along the line, Stephen. And I know, well, Stephen, me and you've been speaking on Twitter and stuff. So again, it's nice to meet you face to face. So again, Stephen, how did you sort of come into it? What's your sort of journey to this point?
Hi Tim, nice to meet you. So I'm a university student actually. So I heard about MaidSafe during the project introduction to the uni, and I'm kind of agree with the idea of the decentralization, how Bitcoin decentralized the currency, and then how David Irvine come up with an idea to decentralize the internet. Because I'm having kind of problem with the current internet, because I don't like my data being mined by every website. So yeah, it's based on that idea that I come to this project.
Just that, and again, and then finally TJ, and then we can really kick this conversation off. So again, TJ, how did your journey get to this point?
Yeah, hi Tim.
Hi.
Yeah, so I started as a network engineer back in India for 5 years, and then I moved my ladder to the business side and that's when I decided to do my master's in Australia as a business analyst. And when during my final semester, when I got to know about this opportunity of doing an internship for MaidSafe, initially I did a little bit of research about it, and then it really got me interested in this because it was something related to the security and decentralization, and that's why I felt there is something which I can give my best in this, and I could learn a lot because it was something which is very new to me about the Bitcoin and about the decentralization and stuff. So we started initially, and now we are really addicted to this stuff.
That's perfect.
That's
And
the thing.
before I kind of go any further, something that I particularly want to sort of delve into, particularly from your Indian background and stuff. How and maybe it's an open question for particularly because I'm sat here in Scotland, and I try to keep up to date with what's going on the internet, but I don't really know the effect this is having in the outside world. And again, I'm very interested, particularly when you just mentioned in there, TJ. It's been a fascination of mine for ages about how. Particularly, this is my point. There's 1 billion Indians, and they all speak English. So the code, everything is written in English. And I was just thinking, if we could get just, I don't know, 20% of India onto the network, it would change everything. Because, as you know, there's a lot of ingenuity, there's a lot of intelligence. But right now, as you would know, there's a lot of stumbling blocks and middlemen between that intelligence and that ingenuity coming out because of the current internet as it is. So you mentioned you're from India. You must have friends and family. So how much, or if any, is traction is MaidSafe, the safe network, etc., having in India?
I think that would be a very good idea to expand that in India itself, because according to me, in India, the main problem I feel is because of the exposure. Yeah, like people are stuck a daily routine, they don't do anything extra, so what the task is given, they just follow that. And even I was, to be frank, when I was that way, it's only when I got the exposure is when I tried to explore things. And like you said, introducing MaidSafe, I think India is a very good place to start with, because all the you find in India, like Cisco and many more like that. So I feel yes, to expand MaidSafe in India is a very good idea, and I think we should consider that, doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of opens up to anyone, and anybody can chip in here. But again, I mean, you're all based in Australia. Again, I mean, I know that from my own research that as we mentioned, you're in the Bitcoin Technology Center, which we were saying before the podcast, is just immense to me. It's amazing that that's even up and built, and someone's actually advanced that much to think that way and put it in bricks and mortar. But how? And I understand that that Melbourne, you're quite advanced on this. But how generalized is the impact of decentralization, Bitcoin, MaidSafe itself? How is that how much traction does that have in the wider Melbourne context, and then equally, how much traction is it starting to have in the Australian context? Because obviously, again, you're another big continent with a lot of wide space, and they're all English speaking, so it's naturally kind of favoring the conditions. So anybody to answer that one, I'd be fascinated how much kind of traction it's all having.
Sure, Tim. I think Melbourne is an exciting place, and the Bitcoin Technology Centre is an example of that. They're really passionate Bitcoin and crypto entrepreneurs and supporters and a broader community. Outside of that, Australia is still a fairly conservative place, and what we've seen in the last week or so, that the banks here have closed bank accounts for Bitcoin companies. So there are really two spectrums: the people that are really adventurous and trying to do the latest things with Bitcoin and with MaidSafe and have the room to do that, and on the other side, the establishment occasionally isn't quite sure what to do with this. And in the middle, we've got the Australian who is trying to be progressive but is slow, and is really lagging behind, particularly the UK and some of the other progressive governments in the world. So it's a very mixed place to be, but it's still a place where if you've got ideas and you want to do things, then you can do them.
So the fact that banks, of course, Australia, like China, like Russia, like so many other places, the banks are pulling out. And in your opinion, what do you think? Do you think ultimately, yes, it slows down adoption, but it also gives it a chance to mature? Because if everybody jumped on board right now, people would be losing their money left and right because they would lose their private keys, they would lose this, they'd lose that. So maybe, do you think ultimately this is not such a bad thing, because there still needs to be a lot of development for it to be a very dispersed technology where everyone can jump on board and be relatively safe and secure in their funds?
Yeah, it is good because it does give the developers long products, but I think more importantly, nothing can stop this. So even if companies or applications are sent offshore, previously in Australia that it takes about 3 weeks for a company to move offshore, set up somewhere else and launch, still in the position to serve the Australian market, but from a different legislative background. So I don't think it's actually harmful. If anything, it actually harms the country because you're sending innovation offshore. And I think one of the great things with MaidSafe is that's another thing where don't matter, that any reactions that you get from government are really not that relevant. They might be inconvenient, but they don't stop things.
Well, I mean, sort of, to go back and what, you mentioned then about how it is in Melbourne. I mean, the one thing I'm more kind of interested in is how much sort of traction are you getting in the outside day-to-day world? I mean, and the press and generalized, because the very fact, I mean, I think about this in small terms. I mean, when you've got a building that's called the Bitcoin Technology Center, that has to, the press can't ignore that. They've had to maybe do an article on it, and that's obviously going to start spreading seeds, and more people are going to do. So again, I'm more on the day-to-day, if I was to sort of land in Melbourne, and walk around, what would be the percentage of people who would understand or know anything about Bitcoin or that kind of decentralized technology?
Okay, look, from my point of view, it's still very early days, but there is a background awareness now of Bitcoin, and usually when I want to talk to people about crypto, I start with the conversation about Bitcoin because it's the point of connection, and as I said earlier, I think that Bitcoin gives us a context for absolutely everything else that's happening in crypto, and I find it hard to imagine how we would have had a platform to talk about this without Bitcoin itself. Mm-hmm. So that's where I usually start, and yes, I get a connection at that point, and then I start to talk to people about the fact that they're data raped every day of their lives, which is something that was also mentioned earlier on, and that while as individuals we mightn't be necessarily frightened of the NSA peering into our personal lives, all of that undermines the basis for our privacy and the basis for our personal security, and creates opportunities for other actors to get their fingers into our lives, among them Google, for example. Mm-hmm. And of course all of the more nefarious types across the criminal world and everything else. So that's a conversation I'm getting more and more traction with, and so the actual problem that's being solved here is gaining greater awareness around town. This conversation would get me lunatic status 12 months ago. Now it gets more traction. As to the actual uptake, it's very early. To get commitment to actually coming along to meetups and all of that sort of thing, once a month we get a fairly good crowd because we have a broader topic usually, and it's often sort of an overlap with the whole fintech space and so forth, which is another really good context for this kind of conversation. But I see it as very nascent, and I really welcome this opportunity. And thank you for calling on us and helping to bring us into your world, because other people will be watching. This is what we need to do. We've got a lot to do. It's yeah. At the end of the day, it's very early.
So if a student were to come to you and say, well, okay, so what's this all about? Why should I be interested in it? I guess we know the obvious answers, but what would you tell somebody, like, why should some child or a young student coming to your university want to, if they're interested in technology, what would you tell them about MaidSafe and SafeCoin? What would you say to them?
I'd like to hand that back to Catherine in just a moment, but my first response to that is, you know, this is so great to see young people like TJ and Steve here and interested and motivated, and they're at the beginnings of their careers. You know, I'm an old guy, and my whole wish is to help to shepherd younger people into this, because this is the beginning of a new blue ocean. We've got enormous potential here, not just to do these good works in terms of keeping the world a safer place for our children and grandchildren, but this is such a rich field and a new field. This is, as they say, Internet 1995, as far as just unknown potentials going forward. So now, Catherine, I think you could probably answer that a little more coherently.
You did a good job. I think it is really good to see even younger people about this, and I think they're actually an easier audience, because if you take primary school children, they actually have very different perceptions of money and technology, and for them it's not such. The chance that very young people now will have bank accounts in the future is decreasing. The ideas that we have that centralized authorities hold information about us, that's increasingly going to be something that individuals hold and individuals share. And prior to this podcast, I was trying to think of some more applications for MaidSafe, and one of the things that's interesting potentially is health records, because there are lots of failed projects around e-health, and governments really have tried, and they put everybody's health records in a central database that's seriously compromised. And MaidSafe could be used to store records. You can store it, share it with medical professionals across countries. You can share it with an insurance company and then revoke those rights so that you're in control. These are the sorts of things, although children are probably not thinking about health in that respect, but they might be thinking about, well, anything that's to do with me, how do I control that, and how do I make decisions about it, and who do I share that information? And yeah, I think it's an easier conversation to have with primary school children, high school children, and even university students than it is with existing people in the workforce. We've all been trained to think centrally, and decentralization is an incredibly scary thought.
Yeah, when I said children, I actually meant university students. Okay. Aren't children. But yeah, I feel old now, so I guess whatever.
No, I mean, I think another fascinating thing that you mentioned then, Catherine, about the whole how I think particularly the SafeNet is going to absolutely completely change everything will be, like you said, in the medical records, because it's not only, as you said then, there's two fundamental ones, and I think this is the very essence of everything that's been built around MaidSafe and the Safe Network, is that nobody has the right to know these information. We shouldn't live in a world with middlemen. That, you know, at any level, at any point with anything, you know, medical records is to me is a very obvious one, because it's kind of like, no, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Melbourne. I'm speaking as a person living over here, but I go to the doctors and they will read my medical records, and I can't get hold of them. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, who gave you permission? You're not my dad. You know, we're all born on the same rock. You know, I think that's fundamental. I think this is one of the mindset changes that people have got to have. That, no, all information about yourself is you. You are sovereign of your own mind. You are the brains of the central nervous system in that sense. But I think one of the things as well, Catherine, I think this is one of the reasons why particularly young people are on it, is because they've grown up in an age where they don't know anything other than the internet. They didn't live in our world where to know this kind of stuff you had to go down to a library and sit there and thumb through books and then hopefully write a letter and 2 weeks later you'd get they don't know that world. And I think one of the things again, which is why I think the two are going to be, it's going to be fascinating to me to see what happens in the next few years, is going again back to the medical one, is, you know, you were saying then about, you know, going to insurance, you know, getting direct access to your doctors and stuff like that. Well, you think about it, we're only 4 or 5 years away from, you know, the point where you'll be able to 3D print your own drugs, and you can then go onto the Safe network, see what, you know, go and see what's been put onto the Safe network in a, you know, one of these medical apps or somewhere, find out what your condition is. Then if you want to, go to a second doctor on the Safe network, speak to them. It could be a doctor anywhere in the world, and then between the both of you, go away and 3D print your own drugs, and you can specifically do it to your own needs and things, rather than just going to a doctor who gives you one you know, cure-all pill. And kids get that far more, and I think that because they've grown up in that world, they're and that's what I'm saying. There's so many exciting possibilities, and you just tapped onto one with medicine, and then you start to think every area of life. And this is what it is. It's the printing press, and how the printing press changed the world. Where we are now, and I say it often, we're living in, this is an epoch moment in the human civilization, and we're lucky enough that we're just at the beginning of it, and we're here, and we're the early adapters, because in 20 years time people are going to go like, oh, I wish I'd known about that 20 years down the line beforehand, because, you know, that's why the first people there are the first people to shape it all. And that's what inspires me, that the people shaping it is, look at the people we're speaking to, and that's what inspires me. You know, it's people from all around the world doing this, and we're all like-minded, and we're all just coming together just to, you know, just to basically shape this epoch moment in what we're lucky enough to have.
So I have a question for Steve and TJ. Which applications are they most excited about for MaidSafe?
Yeah, like just before that, like to answer that, I would like to say what Catherine said was like really brilliant about the medical thing. The other day I was talking to one of the senior developers. So he asked me a question like, he said, when I explained about the MaidSafe, he said, I can see the technology element in this, but how does the business go about integrating MaidSafe as a part of the business? And to be honest, like it really like caught us up, you know, like we had thought about so many things, but this question really like what like I can say, like got us into a reality check. And that's when we discussed with Peter and Catherine and Steve. So we have a every Wednesday we have a meeting in MBTC, that is Melbourne Bitcoin Technology Center. And that's when we started like segregating like this our platform and stuff. So like Catherine said, it's related to medical, and then we came up thinking that the network can be so strong that it can be used in the military applications as well. And there are a few people who might ask why the network is so secure and stuff. Why do you say it? The only thing I get back to them saying, then hack it and show, probably like that. And I think Steve, if you have something.
Yeah, I think we pretty much cover everything though. We're looking forward to do some collaboration with this.
Steve, I don't know if anybody else is having the problem, but I think your mic's a little low. I don't know if you can turn up your mic or get closer to it.
Hello? Is it on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
It's on. It was just very low.
Okay. Is it okay now? Or is it still low?
It's still quite low, but
yeah,
okay.
A bit low, but I guess.
We can hear you. Go on.
Yeah, you can just.
Okay, so I think TJ pretty much covered everything though. But what I'm looking forward to this Safe Network is the collaborations of businesses, small businesses, like the coming up of new ideas. People have different ideas and they can choose who they want to share with. So yeah, it's really a great tool for collaborations, for innovations. something new will come up from the Safe network. And then also from supply chain perspective, it's a really good tool to share your information with your selective customer or suppliers or business partners. Yeah, and also for freelancers, yeah, it's kind of so the idea of freelancers is you create a demand for a job and then someone just supply the service or supply the things. But the thing is in the current internet for freelancers you're required to pay certain amount of fees, and you need to how to say verify yourself in the internet, and it's like it takes a lot of things to do. You need to scan your birth certificate and stuff, and I think it just takes a lot of time. It's too time consuming, and it's not really worthy to do that to just hire someone to do a job. Yeah, that's just the most things I look forward for in the Safe network.
Well, I've personally said this for a while, and it's a challenge that, you know, and hopefully this will trickle out into someone who's listening to this podcast, and particularly me. And maybe this is what I'm saying. I love someone. Maybe you know, this could be the one thing that maybe Melbourne MaidSafe would be known for. I think one of the to me, one of the, you know, kind of roundabout answering Rich's questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and just, you know, generally again widen that question out what Rich was mentioning, and about the apps that excite you. And one of the apps I think that somebody's going to be, it's going to come up with somewhere, and I think it'd be great, you know, to happen sooner than later, would be what I call, and I don't want to call it a Babel app. The idea that we could speak and communicate, and instantly the language would be, you know, instantly understandable the other end. Now we've already got clumsy tools for this. We've got Google Translate. We've got, you know, and I know that I understand that there's some other technologies that's starting to do. But if someone could just do this on a Safe network, so I could go and talk to somebody in Malaysia, I could go and talk to somebody in Russia, and we haven't got to worry about translating and doing all that. We have instant communication. If somebody could have that, do that, man, that would set the world free. Because the reason I say it's a Babel app, and it goes back to the old story in the Bible, you know, that's what divided mankind originally, was put different languages into them, and that was what spread mankind and made us all separate into these entities and tribes. So if we can reverse that, and we could just have the ability to communicate, man, as we all know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're talking to people here. We've got connections to India, connections to to other parts of Asia, obviously to Australia, you know, America. You know, if we could just get everybody to communicate, which is what the Safe net, as we know, that's what the infrastructure will be. And then on top of that, an application could make us all communicate with each other. That'd be fantastic. So that's my little call to Melbourne out there, man.
So,
but
go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, on the side of you know, you're exploring then. I mean, is the plan with the MaidSafe Melbourne to actually sort of dig into the core Rust and start to build upon that, or is it to build apps? I mean, what's the sort of future progressions where you want to be going with MaidSafe, Melbourne?
Okay, I can start on that one. My original vision with helping to get this project started here was to harvest the existing capabilities and all of the people currently involved in web applications, web application development, simply because there are a huge number of people already working the HTML5, CSS, JavaScript space, and there's all these great JavaScript libraries and so forth, and that is one way that we're going to be able to provide applications on the Safe network, basically packaged up HTML apps. And so that is exciting to me. But particularly TJ, but also I think Steve, were very interested in the advent of the Rust core of the Safe network core development moving to Rust, and the potential to actually bring some people into the Rust space in Melbourne and hopefully attract them into the centre and get them to be part of our community, because of course there are going to be more powerful applications developed in those low-level languages. So I think it's right across the board. We're open to everything, and whatever we can get happening will get happening. And I'll be able to talk to the web developers, but yeah, hopefully we'll get other kinds of developers developing other kinds of apps for the whole stack. That's my take on it. Who would like to jump in?
I'll just say from just before we go any further, from someone who is not particularly overly involved in code, and I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this again who haven't got any idea. Let's take it back to the very step. What is Rust? I mean, from people who are doing that, what is Rust? I mean, it is a computer language, and my understanding, that as we know, they went from C++, which is another computer language, to Rust. So again, I would love to sort of have an explanation of what Rust is, just on a general one, and what it really meant. I mean, as my understanding is, it really basically going to Rust, just basically just put a hyper boost in the whole thing, and it just went. But that's my understanding as a non-codal person. So please, as I'm thinking to people with more understanding, please, I'd love to have an overview of what Rust is and how it, what that means to people, and all the rest of it, really, because.
All right. Well, look, I'm not the Rust language is what is known as a low-level language. They say these languages are closer to the machine than the scripting languages I mentioned previously. I, as a developer, work in scripting languages when I'm working on server-side code, which I'm doing less and less of because I'm much more interested in the decentralized model. I use something called Cold Fusion, which is by now quite an old scripting language, but a very capable one. It's very nice. It's this, it's that. But these are scripting languages which are then interpreted and then are broken down and run often on top of Java and so forth. So you've got this messy stack of things sitting down underneath that code where you're trying to talk English to the computer and it gets interpreted and produced in a way that works. So I'm not an expert in the low-level stuff. When David Irvin announced that he was moving the project from C++ to Rust, I thought, my God, that is an audacious step. But it looks like it's worked out. I mean, it was a courageous thing to do, and he obviously has some very powerful insights to have made that call, stuck to it, carried it through, and the result of that has been an enormous reduction in the number of lines of code, which means an enormous reduction in the amount of the number of bugs, because the number of bugs will be directly proportional to the number of lines of code. There are rules in all of these things which are well understood nowadays after many years. And so you reduce the number of bugs and you reduce the amount of maintenance, and when you do a feature change, you have less lines of code to wrangle. The other thing is C++, being very powerful, enables people to make horrific mistakes in terms of managing the memory of your computer resources and so forth, because you have to do that fairly explicitly in a language like C++, whereas Rust has a lot of the benefits, as I understand it, of a low-level language, but takes away the need to do that explicit memory management every time you do something. You don't have to go in and manually clean up what you've done. The environment does that for you. So my very meager understanding of Rust is that it's like it has most of the benefits and much less of the disadvantages of something like C++, and that's about as far as I can take it because I really don't know any more about it than that.
Does Stephen or TJ, do you have anything to chip in about that?
Yeah, I'm not from a computing background, so I don't really know about Rust computing language. But one thing I can say, it's for someone with a minimum experience of computing language, Rust language is how to say it's a really it's meant for security because it's more simple. It creates less bugs and stuff. So yeah, it's more appropriate for security applications. That's all my understanding about Rust language.
Okay, but again, I mean, this kind of ties in really. I mean, with the Rust, and you were mentioning on, Catherine, you were saying earlier on that it's about young people and inspiring young people. Have you explored, or it's a two-part question really? One, have you explored the avenue of maybe getting under fives, under tens, and starting to learn them sort of like the very basis of what we're talking about then? And equally, what from people who are working this, what would be the first step? So if someone's listening right now and they've got a child who's under 5 and they think, do you know what I want to do? I want to teach them, and I want them to be part of this new, upcoming world. Where would we recommend that people start? So it's a kind of two-part broad question.
Sure. I think one of the first things that you want to do is try and develop some games for this. I haven't actually done any work with children, but you would need to introduce these decentralized concepts to them with gaming. And there's been some work already on teaching really young kids the logic behind programming, and there's no reason to be applied to decentralized things. I'm not sure that you'd want to be teaching young kids how to program Rust, but that's something that could be left for later. But
JavaScript, probably.
Probably, or object-oriented programming. I think there are all sorts of things you can do, but it would need to be around games and playing and made part of early education. But getting back to Rust, it obviously is a new language, and I think Peter gave a good description of it. I think it's really important for MaidSafe's adoption that we don't get tied down in the need for Rust, because there will be crews that do it really well, and I really respect people that have talent in this area, but it's not a requirement for participation on the SAFE network. It's not a basic requirement for all application development, and so we almost need to elevate it to this elite technical form that it is, but make it quite clear it's not a requirement for everybody, because the SAFE network becomes a very scary place for lots of people. We need to make it really easy and really simple and give people the with existing technical knowledge and a bit of help that they can create something and participate.
Well, I have a quick question for Catherine. Now, are you in charge of creating a curriculum for cryptocurrencies, and how does that work? Or is this more like a lab environment where people can learn about it?
No. I lecture part of an emerging technologies course, and so I'm given postgraduate business information tech students for 6 weeks, and based on what's happening in the crypto space, I then create the curriculum and teach that for 6 weeks. So this semester I taught Bitcoin and other digital currencies. We also covered MaidSafe, we covered distributed networks, and we did mesh. But yeah, the course content changes depending on what's hot at.
Well, is the basic requirement of the class to really get involved and buy maybe a little bit of the cryptocurrency to see how it works, and maybe try to understand what smart contracts are? Or this is very curious to me, and if it's successful, is this something that you would go forward and maybe do like an online course accessible to anybody?
Yes, it could be used online. The course is very participatory. There's lots of activity involved. It would be difficult online. That's not to say it couldn't be changed. Lots of what I do around cryptocurrencies is actually to do with conceptualization, people to practice things. I don't require them to buy cryptocurrency, although I encourage it. I encourage them to attend meetups. I encourage them to engage the community. I give them weekly news on what's happening in the space. I get them to draw concepts that are foreign. I get them to brainstorm about applications.
One more question. What's the best application one of your students came up with? I think, did I get
yeah,
her?
it's definitely expanded.
I think the question Rich was asking, well, what was the best application that one of your students has come up with so far?
Get cut out. The best one for this semester was actually, and I hope I'm not breaching confidentiality because I hope this student actually goes and builds it.
I don't want to put you on the spot if you feel concerned about it.
It was a pop-up payment application for use in emergency or disaster situations around the world.
Oh, wow.
So whereas platforms exist all of the time, and they're great, there are also situations, and particularly natural disasters, where you suddenly need one. And so they were going to create one of those and use cryptocurrency as the basis for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been on the board lately, the forum, but White House Mashup is the name of the, I guess, the handle for the person who is creating a website based on apps. And I think that would be an awesome place to direct, the students to say, hey, if your idea is great, get your name behind it, put it out there, and if you don't have the knowledge to code it, somebody may come along and say, hey, I'll work with you on this and help them code it. Yeah.
It's a great suggestion.
I think this plays into the very essence of what Richard was just saying then, is that I think it's, I mean, I know Mrs. Particular, I don't want to say particularly, but this is particularly to Catherine and Peter because we're all of a certain age. But I find particularly inspiring now is that anybody can have an idea and other people will go out there and build this. And the more this network grows with the computing power that's going to build up, I mean, this is what I'm saying. This very podcast, what we're doing now, this very conversation is the very essence of what we're doing. This would have been possible 10 years ago. And what I think is I think it chimes in with what you're saying completely, and I think it's what really inspires me about what's going on in MaidSafe Melbourne, and as we were saying earlier before, the other pods around the world in San Francisco and Montreal. It's the opportunity that's great. There's people like you who know the skills and stuff like that. But I think the wider call to the general population is, if you've got an idea, go to contact them. Go down to them. Contact them. They're all, the Melbourne Maids. Go down there and talk to them. Email them. Put your ideas out there. Communicate. That's the essence of the Safe Network. Now, I have a quick question for Steve and TJ, really, because you're, again, flips the way. You're completely opposite side, as Catherine said. You're of a younger generation and stuff like that. Now, where do you see this all going? I mean, where do you think that the Safe Network is going to change, and how do you think it's going to change the world around us? Because you're at the age, and you've got the future ahead of you, whereas we're a bit more old and looking back at the world and thinking, I'm glad it's happening finally. But you're at the future. You're the new generation. So where do you think this is going to be? Where do you think the SafeNet will be in 5 years' time? How do you think it'll change the world?
Yeah, I think the way these things are happening, I think it has a very high potential to grow, according to me, because the only thing which I can see in terms of business aspects is, in the current trend, the way the storage is going, the way the security is going, I think collaborating this into all the businesses, I think it's going to be very useful to the other businesses. For example, when I had a discussion with Peter, he gave a very good example of the storage and the need of it. Like what's been happening, like we can somewhat think about like what do you say that where you like Dropbox, using Dropbox. I think Peter is the right guy to explain that maybe later on. So I think it has a very great potential. In another 5 years, I see people getting educated about it, And just before that, when you asked about how we can train or educate the youngsters, like maybe example for people below 10 years or something.
Hmm.
So we have a subject which Catherine is teaching us, that is emerging trend. So she took us for 6 weeks. Another 6 weeks was about the programming languages, but that was nothing related to C, C++. It was related to tool-based things. So I was just thinking, like, so you know this Lego programming, right? So you don't need to know usually how to program and stuff, but if you know only the concept of if else and stuff. So this is how I think we can also educate youngsters by doing something creative regarding the Rust application, or maybe creating some game where it can be very simple for the youngsters, and then develop them when they keep growing, or maybe in a way to market our Rust thing by creating an app just based on Lego programming stuff. You don't need to be a programmer. Like, I have no idea about programming. I don't come from the programming language, but it's really interesting. So we built a robotics. We built an app just using a tool that is MIT inverter tool. That's there's a tool. Using that, we built an app. All we needed to know was the concepts of if, else, then logic. That's it. So I think we can use some tool based on Rust languages just to maybe educate people regarding this. And yeah, I think it should be fine another few years down the lane from now.
Well, I mean,
Steve, you have something?
you personally, TJ. I
Yeah.
mean, again, it goes back to what I was, kind of asked you when we started this conversation off. I mean, how do you think the safe network will change India? Because, I mean, like I was saying when we started this conversation off, I mean, how do you think the projection of that will go in? Because I think one of the things that's really inspired me ever since I heard about the safe network was thinking, okay, it's great for us people in the first world. We've all got fiber connections. That's great. There are a lot of benefits. But the real game changer is all the 2/3 of the world right now who haven't been able to connect. They live in parts of the world where governments are more repressive. There's a huge, massive humanity out there that I think is going to really shape the new era that we're about to go into. And I'm interested because, like I keep going back to, India is it's a mass population of people, and I know there's a lot of potential there. So again, it asks you, TJ, where do you think that how do you think that the safe network could really change, and where do you think it will be in 5 years, particularly in India?
Okay, to be frank, I'm not sure how India is going to adapt to this, but the only thing what I can think about is all about exposure in India. And I'm like, most of my friends or people I know, they all are technology lovers. But the only thing is we don't go beyond it because of the exposure. And the best way is when something is introduced to us, like for example, like Safe Network to me, that's when it really got me into like I said, we are like technology lovers. If it is exposed to us, we go and explore it. That's the thing. So I think in India, it has to be more of exposure and more of. So there has to be something, or maybe me and Steve, maybe in a few years, or maybe now, we can just start up something, branding it, or giving an exposure. So start it with a small basic idea in India, and I think I'm pretty sure it might grow. But I cannot say anything about it. So I'm not sure how they're going to adapt it, but I'm pretty sure if it is exposed, there's a great exposure in India, people are going to love it because they are technology lovers.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, particularly I see, particularly places like India and Africa and stuff, is the ability to, like you were saying earlier on, to trade. The ability to have secure access and trade. I mean, one of the potential apps of what Rich was mentioning earlier on, the site that's being built up, and I sent you the link for it. You could already do this. You could already, I could produce something here, piece of art. I could go into the safe network. I can, send that to security to someone else, peer to peer, post it across. There's already that app. I think it was called Black Apps, where you could already post it, shipping on boat. That will change a lot of things because I've had a little experience of living in these countries, and as you would know more, and I don't know how it affects Australia stuff, but trade is a really big one that it's going to open up the doors to, because the idea that, again, it goes back to what I was saying, there's middlemen, and we have to go through documentations and stamps, and no. That's where I think it will really change the world, in particularly places like India, because as you know, they run on hyperinflation and hyperinflation. So anything to stop that curse on humanity.
Yeah. That's the thing. So now that we are like establishing in Melbourne, so me and Stephen being the university student, like we are doing this masters of business IT course, right? So business IT. So based on this, we are getting a lot of experience. So we know how to build a community now. And initially, when we started up, like we had no clue what to do. So we initially started with knowing MaidSafe, what is MaidSafe, and that actually took us like few weeks to understand. And that's when we actually, this project helped us to gain something about marketing, which we were not actually thinking that we would ever learn about marketing. And we feel as of now about like it's been 10 weeks now, and we really feel that we have the skills of marketing now, and we can think like a business analyst now. And setting up a community, like we are in touch with the developers now, and I think tomorrow we have few meetings with few developers in MBTC. I, I think, yeah, this is a start, and I think we can pull it towards the end now. That's the thing. And coming to India again, so it's all based on community, about educating people. It's all about building contacts and like how we promote it, how we market it. I think we can do it. That's what I feel. I'm feeling very positive about it. That's the thing as of now. And if Steve has something to say, Steve.
Yeah. I think TJ made a really good point about the community and stuff. But the way I see Safe Network in 5 years from now would be more to the economic sides, where the adoption rate will. I think it's kind of hard to predict because it has a lot of potential of adoption. Where I can see the problem with the current internet is it's not secure enough. It's kind of how to say, it's kind of vulnerable to cyber attacks. That's why like older generations that hasn't come into the digital world, like you said before, 2/3 of the population doesn't have access to the internet. But some of the people that has access to internet choose not to do things online because they don't trust anyone in the digital world. Yeah. So that's the greatest potential that I think Safe Network has in terms of adoption. And the way I see the technology trends, it really grows rapidly this past decades. And then the younger generations loving technology more than we did when we were that young. But so yeah, I can see more people is getting into technology. It kind of range from the younger generation to the older generations because it kind of solves the problem for the older generation, but also encourage innovation for the younger generation. Yeah, that's what I think the segment will go in the next 5 years.
Well,
Yeah.
to take this back right to a development that's happened recently. I mean, I don't know how aware you all are about the it was put out at the end of August and about you can set your own vault. Now, is this something that you've all down in Melbourne done? Have you tried actually setting your own vaults up, and how's your experiences around that been? Because I've had certain experiences and I've talked about it before, so I'm interested in down there how. A, have you managed to set your own vaults up, and B, how many vaults are you setting up, and how are you finding it just in the first sort of, because we're at the very early stages. This is a major, step forward when you could just go onto, Waterfox and set your own vault up. So you're there. You're far more walking this, swimming this river than I am. So how's your experiences around that been?
It's more like how to say it. It's always hard like in the beginning, but there's a thing that I kind of hold on to. It's like you don't need to be great to start, but you need to start to be great. So it's something that kind of motivates us to keep working on it. There was no one that knows about MaidSafe in the beginning, but we kind of try to keep trying to get into the conversation, like trying to get Safe Network in the conversation with everyone when they say about internet, because everyone uses internet right now. Like most of the people in Melbourne use internet, and we see a lot of potential, a lot of market in Melbourne. So yeah, and they're having problems with their internet. Like for example, earlier this morning I jumped on the train and like most of the passengers on the train were on their smartphones using the internet on Facebook, and then the way I see it is there is there's a great potential if only the people are aware of the new technology in there. So we kind of what we're trying to do now is creating the awareness first for the people, so people knows what MaidSafe is, what Safe Network is, and then based on that we kind of try to capture their interest in Safe Network, and then if they're interested, then we're all open to them. We will talk to them, and we try to build something together. Yep.
And
could I jump in quickly on that one? The specific question about running our own vaults and so forth. This is quite frankly somewhere we've been terribly remiss, and we were at a point a few months ago when you have to download the latest build and build from source and do this and do that. And I know things have progressed since then, but in that period I personally have been extremely distracted and busy with other things. So what I want to do is get back to that. My ambition is to get a model set up, and what I'm most attracted to is being able to run this on minimal hardware. So I'm thinking Raspberry Pis, right? Other people have been working on this. The whole idea that you can run yourself a node on a Raspberry Pi, that it's a minimal computer, that a lot of the hardware in that computer is open source, and that's a really important thing from the point of view of backdooring of hardware, which we know is now very well established. So that's what I find attractive, and which is what I want to do in the very near term, and actually have that set up so that people can follow it easily and do it for themselves, have something actually published along those lines, and have run some workshops and so forth at the centre. That's what I would like to be doing with that.
So you're sort of thinking of going down the Raspberry Pi. That's your main area, because I again, from someone, I mean, I've maybe for a year now, I've kind of every laptop I've saved for the last 5 years. I'm thinking, right, I'm going to get all those fixed and then run them as farming equipment. So I'm kind of, I know it's quite a common thing over here that people, they're very much a consuming culture, and they buy a laptop and then they throw it away. And I'm saying to people, don't throw it away if it has a malfunction. Go down, get it repaired, and just use that machine as a farming one. So it's an interesting one. I'm more laptopy. I understand the Raspberry, but you're saying more Raspberry Pi. How do you feel about the laptop issue? Do you think that's something that's people should be worth doing, or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will be running nodes on everything I can get hold of. It's just that it just is a personal appeal to me to be running something potentially so powerful on such a piece of minimal hardware. Consider it sort of like a hobby interest, but definitely I will have nodes running on every piece of hardware I'm operating. There'll be no doubt about that. And I think that's an extremely good suggestion, is to deploy any hardware you've got lying around and stick it on the network, because every piece of hardware on that network is going to empower the network. That's going to be very important in the early stages. And so, yeah, it's not an either-or for me by any means. I just thought I'd throw that in because I find it appealing.
Well, I think this is another example of how, as I was saying, this is going to be the big swing, because right now, all the places where we're dumping all our computers and our machinery, usually Africa, let's just be true about it, let's just be real about this, we're dumping it all in Africa and we're pushing it all onto some bit of soil. Well, all those people are literally sitting on a gold mine, because all those old hard disks and stuff can be used as nodes, and then they can sit there, earn the safe coin, and we'll all be sitting in the Western world thinking, we were fools, we threw all our laptops away. So these are the things I'm starting to see, thinking, all the things that we've done, the bad things that we've done in the West, it's only going to uplift the rest of the world, because they're going to have a massive advantage over us, because they've got all our laptops and our old hard drives. And
that's a good point. I mean, the only caution I'd throw in there is power efficiency of those older machines. But hey, I certainly get the point. And if people are sitting out in the bush somewhere with solar power and they've got some surplus, it doesn't really matter, does it? Or wind power or anything like that, and that may well be the case as the world starts to come alight, the the 4 billion unbanked and the 4 billion unconnected and all of that sort of thing. I think that will be very exciting. And yes, why not use old hardware?
I mean, one of the things you were mentioning earlier on, and again, I'm fascinated in this because I think it's something that I think is one of the key sort of links to the chain of all this is mesh networks.
Oh,
now,
yes.
we've been talking a lot about it in the few ants meetings, and we've been speaking about it, and I'm going to be speaking again to a lot more guests about this because I'm seeing different solutions in different parts of the world. I mean, for instance, I've got a guest coming on tomorrow. We had him in the ants meeting. He's from Argentina, and he was telling me that Buenos Aires, and that's a huge city of over 20 million people, they're already mesh networked up. And I was like, whoa, then, and that's great. And he was talking about ideas about taking this out into the Patagonia and spreading it. Now, and again, so you mentioned earlier on that obviously there's been sort of, a kind of awareness of mesh networks. So tell me how again, how big is the mesh network community, and how is mesh networking in Melbourne, and then equally out into a wider level? Is there plans and proposals? Have you heard any ideas about how to spread this into Alice Springs and all the remote parts of Australia that won't have Fibertel and stuff like this? I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences on mesh networks just in general, really.
Sure. Networks are a niche thing in Australia. There are researchers that are looking at it. There was a crowdfunding attempt by a university, I think a year or two ago, where they had a plan to actually roll out technology that would solve this for the world. The specific areas where Australia is looking to apply mesh networks are in the areas of bushfire zones, so where we know there are regular bushfires or high bushfires and they take out mobile towers so that there's communication. There are so many areas in remote parts of Australia that would benefit from this, but I really think it's going to take some bright entrepreneurs that want to go out there and actually build show communities how to use this technology. So I think there's heaps of potential, but it's not being fully utilised yet. And I think you're right. It might actually be the countries in the world that don't have anything that end up surpassing us because they get their act together and leapfrog us in terms of technology. And yeah, in Australia, we're currently still trying to roll out a broadband network, and it's going very slowly and is not looking like a terribly successful project despite its huge expense. It would be a brilliant opportunity just to put mesh networks in where that's not working, but that's something that's going to have to be business and community driven, obviously not government at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, on the mesh networks, one of the guests who comes into our ants meeting, he's over based in America, and he's already based on little mesh net. Exactly what you just said then, community from the bottom upwards. He's going around his local community and he's saying to them, look, if we all buy, a Wi-Fi, we make our own Wi-Fi network and we can, and that's, I think that's the way to do it because, as we know, I don't know who your main Fibertel or cable provider is over there, but they're not going to spend billions and billions on putting on that into the middle of some farm in Alice Springs. That's not in their business model. So we need to find solutions themselves. And I'm interested to know. I've heard a lot of solutions are coming up, and I think one of the ones that's I think is a way forward. And it's been I'm going to really sort of try to sort of find a flag for is basically wireless. Building up wireless networks yourself. I mean, rather than actually doing the infrastructure, just go Wi-Fi and do it completely. I think that's the way forward. And this is what excites me about the safe network, because there's going to be ways and means through farming and the churning of SafeCom where these can be funded from the bottom upwards, rather than to some great big company come in and say, well, we're going to give you the. And we can do this ourselves, and that's a great thing about. Particularly, as you know about the safe work, it's all about farming. It's not mining. You're not just digging and digging. There's the flow of currency is continual, you know. And if you like Peter was just saying, you know, once you've got your laptop up or you've got your Raspberry Pi up, you are earning SafeCoin, and then you can use that to go and fund other projects. I mean, there's so many other projects in the world, and I think this is why I love to talk to people all around the world, because I think sometimes we can become very centric in our ideas, and I think the great thing about the SafeNet for me has been the idea we can communicate and communicate and communicate. And right now we're doing this, as you know, on Google Hangouts, you know, in a known way that's all done, you know, but this is only going to evolve and evolve and evolve, and that's my kind of thoughts on mesh networks. I know, Rich, you have a lot of thoughts on mesh networks. Is there anything you want to chip in, Rich?
I was wondering if any of them had listened to John Ferguson's podcast where he interviewed the teacher from Brisbane, who he's an economics teacher. Anybody hear that? It was really great. I loved it. I imagine some of those students may end up at RMIT one day.
Yes, I heard that, and a colleague of mine with whom I helped to run the local podcast out of our centre here also heard it and was very keen on it. We've been trying to track him down because he's working with young students and so forth. He is not sort of declaring who he is, so we probably can find out. We're hoping to get him on our show as well. That was an extremely moving and a brilliant piece of work, and just so pursuant to what Catherine was saying earlier about the potentiality for young people who are not already set in a world view and are coming into this very naturally. Apparently they got the safe network immediately. They just understood it, and it was just an instinctual thing for them. So that is what's so heartening and encouraging, I think. That was a brilliant piece of work.
Well, this is where I see. I think the you know, where you are right now, and I'm sitting here, like I say, I'm stood here and looking this from very far, and I think the Bitcoin Technology Centre is just a very blueprint of what's going to be everywhere. I think these kind of where you are right now. So you've been, you know, we were saying before the podcast for a short period of time. I mean, how do you find how is it working in a place that's just dedicated around decentralization, the idea of new cryptocurrencies, the idea of, I mean, that must be very inspiring. What's it like on a day-to-day level to turn up and not having to think, oh, I've got to, you know, work for a company that doesn't even know what decentralization means. So again, please give me your experiences, because this is, I think, a blueprint for the future. And I felt that the first time I went to Troon, I was blown away thinking this is how the world's going to look like in the future, where it's decentralized amongst people. And again, here I am talking to some people who are living it day to day. So I'd love to know your experiences, because I think you're going to, these are the insights into how the world's going to be. So I'd love to hear your insights about what it's like on a day-to-day level working in the you know, this Bitcoin Technology Centre and mixing and sharing ideas.
I'll give you a very quick response to that. I have a day job, unfortunately, but so I get in there, I spend as much time in there as I'm able, and that varies depending upon my workload and so forth. But the big thing is, when I go into that place, I am with like-minded people, and it is as much social as it is professional. I mean, it has become a very important part of my sort of personal and social life, being part of that. We get together on a fairly regular basis for the purpose of having a few glasses of wine and talking a bit of general nonsense. And it's very, you know, like there's that's sort of like the base level, the social cohesion, and then everything else is on top of that. And so I am not in there, you know, sort of with an incubator or anything like that. I'm in there simply trying to promote and build the social network that underpins what will happen going forward, and trying to pull young people in particularly. And when I can free myself from my day-to-day job, certainly intend to be directly engaged professionally, but at the moment I'm not in there all day every day, unfortunately.
I have a quick comment, and this is probably more directed at Catherine, but maybe anyone else could add or say something about it. We're putting together a magazine called SafeCoin Magazine, and we have a few articles that are going to go in there already, and I imagine working with students who are maybe become obsessed with this, you might have a few students that create amazing articles that deal with MaidSafe, and if they'd like to have it published in SafeCoin magazine, that'll be perfect. Where we haven't put out issue 1 yet. The goal is to have it done by December, and the basic idea is that it's going to be community driven, it's going to have community articles, it's going to talk about community apps, and it's basically a way for everyone to get to know everyone else who is active in this area. There will be a website. The magazine itself is going to be an online magazine, but the idea is to have it done up in a way that if somebody wanted to make a run of 100 or 200, they could do that easily, either by downloading the PDF and having it done themselves, or by using one of the online magazine distributors that offer that service. And so it could be something that could help promote the cryptocurrency of SafeCoin, or the technology of MaidSafe and Safe Network. So.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. I'll certainly let people here know that that is available, and it's going to be great. First article, and something like that is powerful because, particularly when we were talking about India earlier, that immediately gives something that you can share and that people can engage with, and a great initiative.
Yeah, what I think is, Rich has been particularly, this has all been Rich's, kind of idea and his inspiration. He's really driven us forward, and I think what's really great about it is, and it's kind of been a perfect example, and I'm sure it's something you have in common, because we're dealing with such almost like new technologies, we don't know what's going on. I mean, just the idea of trying to do an autonomous, decentralized magazine, you wouldn't believe the amount of hours that we've kind of like, how do you form? But this is what it's inspiring, because I think these are the, as you know, these are the areas that you confront every day of your life. We are just on the edge of the edge. We do all this, and the thing hasn't even been launched yet. We're
I'm glad you brought that up, because Dali Shala, who is working on the N99 application, he's a very proficient coder, has offered to create a SafeCoin magazine content management system, which would link directly to the Safe Network once it's up and running, which means that articles that get a lot of views on there, well, the creator of the article could be compensated in that way. And the more, yeah, just the typical way the Safe Network works, that whoever is adding value to the network earns SafeCoin.
Which then, Richard, I think the great thing about that is just what I was just trying to say, is it gives the ability to, people who want to write articles to write it anywhere around the world, and they haven't got to go through a middleman. And if it's really popular, they get rewarded. And that's, I know we repeat this, and I think sometimes we're so used to living in this kind of mindset. It's good at times to step back and think, do you know how mind-blowing this is? And I mean, particularly Stephen and TJ. I don't want to sound, but me, Catherine, and Pete, we're from a generation where this was science fiction when we grew up, man. And when we grew up reading, all the cartoons and stuff, the idea that I was having this conversation, I'd be sitting in front of screens, was a mind blow. But to what we're going to do, and the fact we just sit around and go, oh yeah, and this, and then the idea you can instantly earn rewards for what you create. We just think it's just a part of our conversation. But then you step back and you think, whoa, it's such a mind-changing, blowing event in the human civilization. And that's why I was interested to sort of hear about, where you really think this is going to change in the big things. Because I mean, I've got a fascination, as you know, I've always been fascinated about music and connecting artists and musicians, and my big thing about it, I really want to do, is connect the musicians and the artists to the scientists, to the engineers, to the computer coders, because that's the essence of Renaissance, and that's where we move forward. And if we can do that in privacy, which is one of the things I think is really important, is privacy, is having the idea we can share concepts without someone else knowing, because we all need that. Because And do you know what the proof of that is? Nobody lives in glass houses. We all live with walls. So that's a human proven trait. So that's what I'm saying. I have interest and fascination. So I mean, it kind of roundabout, and the question I would like to ask all of you is, we kind of touched upon it, but why did you, what is it? Why about MaidSafe? Why the safe network? Why has made you? Why does this get you up every day and fire your synapses to do this rather than just sit back and watch America's Got Talent or Australia's Got Talent, or why? What's your drive? Because these are the things, to me, the whys are the important questions, and it's the answers to the why questions that inspire our people. So please, man, tell me one by one, or as anyone, what's why the safe network, why MaidSafe, why this is important.
Yep. For me, it's like when you kind of agree to that idea, like the decentralization and the privacy things in the internet, it kind of solves the current problem of the internet. But you can't just sit back and do nothing about it. If you want it, you need to do something to make it happen. So it's like it's kind of driving me, like I'm kind of a person that don't like to sit back and do nothing and wait for the result. So it's more to do something about it and be part of it. And this is part of the game changer that I believe MaidSafe will surpass the current internet. It will take the way the business carries out more than the current internet could do previously. It's like it's taking one step ahead than the current internet. So yeah, I kind of believe this is gonna be a great stuff, and I want to see this happen. So yeah, I think I need to do something about it. I need to go out there and contribute to the safe network, because I want it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with Steve. Whatever he said, I really like that. See, for me, it's all about the value of the MaidSafe, which I feel will be adapted by a lot of people in future. And why this, I really feel proud about it, is because when we started, like, it was nothing in Melbourne. Like, with the help of Peter and few more supervisors in MBTC, we got to know what it is. And as of today, me and Steve really feel proud of ourselves that we started with nothing, and we created our own website that is again using WordPress, whatever. But we got involved in social media, got in touch with people. We kind of designed the process with the help of Peter and Catherine. So for me, it's the value that has been created, and I know the importance of the security globally as well. And I think it's just a matter of time how people are going to adapt and understand how important security is. And like Steve said about the internet and stuff. So my experience, and I feel, is that MaidSafe is going to give that value to the people in future or coming down. That's it from my side.
The why for me is probably two-faced. Technically, I just think the project is so impressive, and preceding that, there's the whole idea around digitalization, and I feel that the degree to which we're surveyed is highly unreasonable. The degree to which we need to verify identities to do incredibly transactions is just wrong. And there is no reason why we shouldn't online the same sort of anonymity that we have when we go into a shop, pay cash and walk out.
Exactly.
And if there's technology that can provide that, then it's full support.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the technology is really cool and exciting. Like intellectually, it's very engaging to this. The whole ant model and all of that sort of thing. So that's at one end of it, is just a sort of a naturally geeky response to something that's awesomely cool.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of our very big picture stuff, I sometimes think about, there's a project in the world which is called Let's Roll Back Democracy. Right? You can imagine these sinister people, because I don't literally believe that, but the world is behaving in a way as though that were the case. And we really have to start to create some defences for individuals. I'm now a grandfather, so I have 2 kids and 1 grandchild, and when I think particularly the grandson will inherit, if we don't do something, we will be terribly remiss. If they are born into an Orwellian future, or grow up in an Orwellian future, that is our fault.
Yep.
We've really got to get onto this. And so the fundamental enabler for that will have the ability to communicate freely, privately, to be able to think our own thoughts and communicate those thoughts, select people, and that will be the platform for not just saving democracy, but taking it further forward to actually progressing it. Everything we've got to has been hard won.
Yes. In
terms of what freedoms we've got, and we don't realise how much they've already been rolled back. So, for me, it's really that dire important.
It is, yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think this is generally the I don't know, the fork of where humanity is going to go. I think there's going to be the mindset of the people like us who are basically just espousing freedom, privacy, and security, and on the other side, there's those who want more and more and more and more and more control. And we're all wise enough and old enough, and know enough in the world to know where the people who want more control, whatever shadow or clothes they want to put on, or whatever flag they want to fly, those who want more control, we know where that ends. And it ends, and let's be real about this, it ends in the death of human beings. And I don't want to live, like you said, Peter. I mean, it's we hopefully, if we can just change that mentality just a little bit, I mean, is really important. I think that's one of the major things. I think one of the things, again, you were tapping into, and it seems to be something that's almost just dissolving from our human understanding of what we are as people, is this idea of privacy. I mean, I don't know how this is in Melbourne, but people, in my circles and people I know, privacy seems to be, if you ask them, say, do you think the world's going to be more private in 10 years' time or less private? And they just see it as, well, of course I'm going to be surveilled. I'm used to now. And it's not been out of anything other than our choice. Everybody puts their what they eat and where they've gone out to drink on Facebook, but we've lost this idea of privacy, and to me, it's a fundamental part of the human condition. We need privacy, and it's important because people need to be able to share concepts, ideas in a private fashion. We can do stuff in public. This is in public, but we don't live our lives in public, and I think this is one of the things that's been eroded a lot in the last 10, 15 years, is this idea of privacy, because we've been used to being watched by CCTV cameras, we've been used to being watched by the NSA, we had the whole Snowden thing, but people don't seem to be understanding what this really means. And I think it's one of the things I think we need to fly the flag for, and fly high and as loud as we possibly can about privacy and security, because I think they're two elements of the world that is being eroded. I don't know how you all feel about that, but
well, I say hear to that, yes. Vehemently.
Definitely agree.
But I think it's, and I think the other thing that's I think as well, and I think it's fascinating that you're obviously there, and you're something you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, Catherine, is that you're there, you're building the new world and stuff like this. And I think one of the, beyond what we just said about privacy or about how the future may be, there's one important thing for mankind or us as a human species to realise that we've got to keep hold of this technology and be at least holding on to it, because it's going to rise. That's Moore's law of effect of technology. It's going to keep rising and rising exponentially, and if we don't keep hold of it as human beings, well, then it's going to shape us. And that's to me, it's the most important reason why we need to be having these conversations, as human beings to each other in a human way, because we need to be shaping the network, we need to be shaping the future, and that's what's always inspired me about the Safe Network. It's been people and connecting people, and it's through this that the world is going to see the change.
I'm gonna have to head out. I just wanted to say I was really happy to meet everybody, and I hope to meet everybody again. And if at some point somebody wants to reach out and make a suggestion for the magazine, or be interviewed for it, or anything else like that, you can reach out to Tim or myself, and I'd love to have a portion in the magazine that is dedicated to each pod, and the developments going on in each pod, so that way everybody can stay connected in another way, and see how there's always that sort of like a classified section. It's like, hey, I have this great idea, I have a white paper, it's well thought out, I have all the graphs, all I need is somebody who knows Rust or whatever, and these developers are going to come out and everybody's going to be able to really get this thing off the ground that much more quickly. So anyway, again, I'm really happy to have met everybody, and I'll talk to you all very soon. Thanks, Tim.
No worries, Rich. Have a good day, my man.
Yeah, thank you very much,
Thanks,
Rich.
Rich. It was great talking.
And congratulations on the magazine, you guys. That is going to be a very important resource, I think. Look forward to it.
Yeah,
and certainly look forward to contributing something, I hope. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that it's been inspiring about the SafeCoin magazine, what we've been talking about kind of through this podcast really, is the idea of connecting people. Now, we mentioned this earlier on, and and while you're all here, I mean, how much actual connection have you actually made with pods? How have you made connection with the San Francisco or Montreal or London, and how much is the communication going on between you? I was saying to Catherine before we went live, I think this is a crucial next point of what we can all do. We should all be communicating with each other, and I was just wondering how much your communication, have you had any because like I said, like Rich was saying, Dali, who's building N99, he's part of the San Francisco pod, and and I know I've already told them to get on and get talking to you guys, so that's what I'm saying. I'm interested to know how much your right now your communication with the outside pods is, and how you see that developing in the future, or how you would like to see that develop. Would you like to? Is there any sort of ideas that you think that could arise from joining, connecting these pods together? As what
Yeah, I think you made a really good point about the connection, connecting to people around the network. But at the moment we are not really active yet in the social media, but we're looking forward to collaborate with the pods around the world. We are kind of held back by our university schedule mostly, but yeah, we're looking forward to get in touch with everyone in the MaidSafe community and in all around the world. So yeah, so we can come up with something good together. We can build something on that. Yeah, we're looking forward to talk to them soon.
Yeah, so our prime focus was initially to build the community itself, but then we laid back a little bit. So we started focusing more on getting in touch with the developers and bringing them to the project. But now we are working on developing the community and meeting other communities. So we are in touch with, we are in few forums. We are expanding who we are, what we do, and stuff. And to be frank, this is our first podcast. Great opportunity for us, and this has given us a lot of confidence for me, as I think for Steve as well. So that's the thing. So our prime focus now is to build the contacts and get into the community, and which we'll be working on that soon.
So one of the things that I have to sort of mention that if somebody had an idea for an app, could they come to you from, say, Europe and speak to you like in this sort of form of communication, or maybe on the SafeNet when that's launched, hopefully? But would they? Are you? I mean, I'm saying, are you open to those kind of collaborations and where people can come to you and have an idea about an app and stuff? The reason I mention this is that it's kind of like, honestly, if you sit anybody down, and I'm sure you're the same, and you sit maybe an hour with people and you say to them, well, what would you do if I gave you all the ability? What would you? And they come up with all these ideas, and I think, well, okay, so that's great. Then, but they need someone to go and make those things. So, is this something that you're hoping to maybe do with the MaidSafe Melbourne? That if people say, somebody in England had an idea about something, could they contact you and get you guys to build it, or is that something you're not really, interested in?
I can jump on that one now. At the moment, there's not a great deal that we could do for them, other than offer them collegial support and a conversation, compare ideas and so forth. But the centre here, I don't know if you're aware of this. There's a company here called Bitcoin Group, which is about to list on the Australian Stock Exchange, a Bitcoin mining company, and they are our hosts. They provide the space where Melbourne Bitcoin technology exists and where this MaidSafe special interest group exists and so forth. And they're in the process of a developer hub and a type centre there, and space, and there are desks available. So for people who want here in Melbourne. So my hope is that centre will start to attract developers. There are people who've been through the place and used hot desks and so forth. There'll be more permanent tenants in that place, and people working in that space or working virtually with that space. There is the potential for investment to come from group eventually. They have expressed an interest in picking up promises and so forth. So it could well be that we'll be able to form a kind of a funding and sort of co-support environment to development. And certainly that's one of my prime aims and hopes for the place.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So short answer is right now, and as soon as we can, as much as we can.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. That's again is very inspiring. Now, this is one thing I really fascinated to talk to all of you all about, because obviously you're there. You're based in the Bitcoin Technology Centre. You're obviously flying the flag for MaidSafe, and you're building your whole thing around the Safe network. So where do you think that the Bitcoin, the blockchain, and MaidSafe are, where do you think they're going to overlap, and where do you think that where do you think they'll both be in the sort of like coming in the future times? I say this, and I'll give you my where some of the ideas I think, and then I'll be interested to see what you think about it. I see Bitcoin not so much as a currency. I think it's going to be the ledger. I think it's going to change all the lawyers. It's going to change anything where there's actually public. You need something to be registered. And for instance, like you rent a house, and you go to the blockchain ledger and say, oh wow, there it is. I've got this from this date to this date, and nobody can affect it. Same with cars. I can imagine in the future you going to a rental car, taking your key up. You've gone on the blockchain and you say, well, from hour 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 o'clock, I've got this car. It's on the blockchain. That's it, mine. And then put the key in, and it automatically. These are the things I think. I think the blockchain is going to be more of a public record, and that's how. And I think the Safe network is going to be the component over the top of it. I do think they're going to work together, but I don't see any competition between the two. I just think like maybe one's a pipeline and one's maybe a cloud above it. So that's my kind of. And again, I have very little idea, but you're all there. You're in the Bitcoin Technology Centre in Melbourne. You're working with MaidSafe, and you're doing that. So I'm interested in how you think it's all going to. The two are going to build and develop in the future.
There's going to be room for both of them, and I think it's going to take a while to work out how they work together and where the overlaps are. One of the things that I came up with is that the blockchain's really good for things like smart contracts, proving identity, there's proof of existence, some of the things Ethereum is coming up with. And that is absolute global something which is very powerful. And some of that will be coupled with acts that have escrow functions and payments. So those are very valuable documents. If you wanted to put those documents somewhere very safe, then the safe network would be a very good place to put it. Because although the blockchain is very safe, anybody who has a physical or electronic copy of that document can potentially activate things. In terms of protecting documents, protecting contracts, SafeCoin offer a lot of value to the blockchain, and so that might be an easy place to start work.
Okay, and that's a very good point. I hadn't actually thought of that. I had thought of the of Bitcoin as basically becoming a gold standard through which everything else is going to perhaps into everything else out of fiat and so forth. But you could actually store a master contract on the Safe network privately and have the hash of that contract verified on the blockchain and that publicly, and that's an interesting and powerful idea. In other respects, I see the Safe network and the Bitcoin becoming very codependent, going very reliant on one another, and that's a very good example of why further to that, of course, is to be able to trade anonymously Bitcoin as an identity, an anonymous identity within the Safe network and so forth, to get away from this whole problem where, well, I see it as a problem where you can be eventually through any of your activities via IP and so forth on the blockchain. It's certainly an interesting idea. And I said earlier, the whole thing is Bitcoin has established our context, everything else crypto. I very strongly believe that.
And Steve and TJ, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, to be frank, like no much idea about it. Like whatever Peter said, we agree with that. That's the only thing we can talk about. Not to be frank. Steve, you have anything?
Yeah, I agree with Catherine, TJ, and DJ.
That's fair enough, man.
So the way I see blockchain is it's getting more popular in business in business world. Like a lot of businesses trying to adopt the blockchain technology. They're trying to make it a little bit more private, and that's where Ethereum is there to create a smart contract to make it a bit more private or public or absolutely private. And yeah, I think SafeCoin will be a good component to that. So at the moment I can't see which one overlaps which one, but yeah, I think they're gonna go hand in hand together. Yep, that's my point of view at the moment.
So Catherine, these guys are top marks for them, right, in the course, right?
I was about to say, yeah. That's the way. That's the way to get to the top of the class, man. Just disagree with it. Yeah, I agree with Peter. I agree with Catherine. I agree with Peter. I agree with Catherine. Yeah. But I mean, I was more interested because, like I say, because you're actually based in a lot of the Bitcoin technology centre. So you obviously have a lot of people interested in Bitcoin. I mean, what's their thoughts on Safe Network? Are they excited about it? Because I mean, let's be real about it. There are other projects out there. We're not the only ones. There's Ethereum and I love MaidSafe because I think it's been built, and I think one of the the greatest things about the MaidSafe lot is it's taken 9 years. So to me, that's like, well, it's been done properly. They're not just trying to rush this out. This is, you know, and every time I hear about, you know, delay in the rust, or I'm like, great, that's brilliant, because I'd rather get this done properly than trying to rush some product out. So, like I said, you're there with people who, you know, are interested in Bitcoin. I mean, how do they feel about MaidSafe? I mean, what's the general impressions you're getting from people around you who are interested in Bitcoin about the Safe network?
Well, I can give you a quick little anecdote as how I came to sort of be identified in the centre as the MaidSafe guy. New Year's Eve, they planned in the Bitcoin Centre for people to get together and have a drink, and as it happened, just about everybody was frantically busy in there, and there was only myself and Sam, the Bitcoin group there, and we shared a bottle of wine and talked, and he asked me, what do you want to do? You know, this is we can't do the community, you guys are the community, what do you? I said, well, yeah, I want to promote MaidSafe, the safe. And so while we're talking, he's on his computer and set up a meetup and committed me to on MaidSafe for January, and threw me straight in, which was great. And that was the impetus to get that whole thing. So there is support, and it only usually takes me about 10 or 15 minutes talking to people at our little bar there out of an evening to, if they're potentially interested, to get them over the few hurdles in understanding why, yes, crypto thing, and understanding the Safe network is unique and offers some unique potentialities for the world. And so once somebody, as I say, got a more or less a background understanding in some aspect of Bitcoin, they are ripe for informing the Safe network. So my experience is generally good.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, if you could speak to people, you know, because this is, you know, technically you go around into anyone in the world. I mean, what if they wanted to reach out and they wanted to help you or get involved in any way? I mean, what is the best ways and the best means of trying to get hold of you? And again, what things can people out there do to help you and you know, to support you? I mean, because obviously people, if they're not in Melbourne, aren't going to be able to attend to your meet-up meetings, and they're not going to be able to. So what can people do? What is there anything that people out there in the public can be doing to help you, and anything at all that you would like us to, you know, the wider audience to help in any way?
We're going to hand over to our social media experts here.
So it's gonna be great if people can basically start with spreading the word about MaidSafe, spreading the word about our community in there, and then it's definitely helpful if they can come in and then be part of the community, doing anything like they want. But the thing is, we want to capture the interest in the Safe network in the first place. So they got the basic, they got the vision, we got the same mind, like to build a Safe network, and we really need like all kind of people at the moment, because we are starting with a few members, like 4 or 5 members, and we need people to connect to us on our social media as well. So in that way we can reach out to them easier, and then this also like why we come up with the online platform at the first place. So it's because at first we don't know who to contact to, like we don't know who to talk to about this, and we just want people to know us, and we want to know people as well. So yep, and anyone, I mean anyone like anyone that has interest and they want to give part of their time to build this project, then yeah, we kind of looking for anyone who knows marketing, and then anyone who knows social media better than us, probably, and then yeah, like all sort of people, I think. Yeah, that's for me. TJ, you have anything?
Yeah. So that's the thing. So initially we started up only focusing on getting the developers, getting in touch with them, and that's only when we realized how the social media is going to play a major role for our project. And that's when we created Twitter and Facebook for our, this thing. And when we spoke to the other people, like former friends and stuff, so there were few people who were not into developing. They were not, they didn't know anything about coding, and that's when they asked like how we can help. And that was the time when we thought like this is a good way to like spread the word, and we shared the links and our project to them, like as in what we are about, and then they started spreading in their wall in Facebook especially. In Melbourne, initially we did not get much response from the coder because we didn't know where to go exactly. But then from I think from Steve's friend circle and my friend circle, there were few developers. Like my sister from India, she got back to me saying what this is about, and I'm still working out to like fix an appointment with with Peter and her. That's what. So we felt this social media is a very powerful tool for our thing to spread the word, and we just want to spread out the word that even if you're not a developer, like you can like help us in promoting this and spread the word across. That's the thing we are doing as of now.
And
Yep.
do you have many contacts with other places in Australia? I mean, we kind of touched upon it earlier on, but the conversation went another turn. I mean, do you have contacts with Brisbane and Sydney, and are there other such developments in Brisbane and Sydney? I mean, is there a Bitcoin technology centre in Sydney or Brisbane? And again, how much is your inside Australia? Are there other people you can contact and reach out to in Australia, or is this basically you are literally flying the flag alone in the whole of a big continent?
Yeah. So to be frank, like as of now, we are just focused on Melbourne right now, but we are trying to expand to Sydney and things. So this is just a matter of time for us to know the right community, the right. So we just don't want to deviate from our plan as of now. We are just focusing on Melbourne, and we have like quite a good response from Melbourne. So like I said, we do not want to deviate from the plan. We are going to focus on other parts of Australia as well, but currently it's Melbourne as of now. Yeah.
Perfect, man. It's really really that's I think it's really great about this, and we kind of like been more as the theme of the podcast is that these are just the early steps. We're at the very beginnings of a new wave that's going to change everything, and it's so to me personally, I'm really inspired that that someone like yourselves are doing what you're doing, and it's been the very I've seen this over and over again. It's just a group of people coming together, like Peter said, like-minded people coming together and just building and building and building. And I think it inspires me because I sit here in Scotland and think, wow, this is, and I've been around for, just been doing this podcast for just for a year. And what I've seen change in a year and how small things, I'll give you a perfect personal example. N99. I don't code. I don't know any code at all. I as a perfect example. This is what I want to make it. It's a very kind of perfect example I want to give maybe to everybody listening. And generally, is that I started this, with an idea. Just to, I went out, and for times I was, flying the flag alone, and at times it wasn't. But all I've seen in a year is just the growth and the growth and the growth and the growth, and then people come along. So, and I remember David Irwin once said to me, and it was, because I went to speak to David and down to the Troon crew, and I had, I had the concepts of N99 flying around my head, and I was so eager. I was like, I learned C++ and I'll write this myself. And he said, just chill, Tim. The coders will come. And I think it's a really good message to pass on. That right now, okay, you may have times, man. You may, when it's raining in the middle of winter, and you're like, oh God, another day. Hey, it'll come. And this is the first steps. And as I keep saying, this isn't even launched yet. We're not even early adopters. We're the mad people on the very very fringes of the fringe. You know what I mean? But that's my encouragement to you. Is that I've seen this in a year, and it'll definitely build. And the great thing about people that I just point the way. I fly a flag for anything that's going on because I'm so inspired by some of the great concepts, apps. Some of the greatest minds I've known are on, building this, and it's just very inspiring. And I don't know. It's going to be great to look back in 5 years' time and think, oof, where we're going to be. And so I just have to say, you know, from my perspective, you guys keep inspiring, because you're changing and affecting people that you don't even know, and you're never going to meet. And you know, I had a band on last night, and they've been a band that have been really kind of been a flag waver for the whole Safe Network since one. They're called the Seeding Demons, and they're from England, and they have a line that says, you know, seed sown, and all about how flowers will either flower and thrive, or they'll wither and they die. And all we're seeing is we're going to see a world where all the flowers are going to thrive, and you lot we're the seeds. So, you know what I mean, and that's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes with seeds, you throw them out there, and you don't know what you're doing, but you're affecting people. And I'm telling you, you're affecting people that you won't even know. So, you know, keep it up and keep it going, because you're the vanguard of the new generation, and you know, and these are the greatest days to live in, and you know, and you are changing and you're affecting people and people around the world, and as Peter said earlier on, I think it's absolutely right. You know, it's all we can do as human beings. So we can maybe just push the world on just a little bit, and hopefully we'd, you know, make a little bit of a change. And it's guys like you, particularly. I'm not really talking to Peter and Catherine here. This is more to TJ and Steve, man. You're the guys, man. You're and Catherine. You know, you're the people who are going to change the world, man. So all power to you. And anything you ever need, please just let me know, and I'll do anything to raise awareness of what you're doing. Again, if there's anything particularly, you know, I'm happy to sort of, you know, because it's kind of like 2:10 in the morning for me over here. Is there anything particularly that you particularly want to say, or any issues and stuff like that? If not, I'm happy to wrap this up. Because another thing, before we wrap this up, I will definitely have to get you back on again. I mean, we'll make this the first of many meetings. I don't want it to be. I think that's the essence of what I try to fly the flag for, and saying this is a first step, not just the first step, and we all don't never see each other again. So, again, is there anything, anything you want to say, please, and then we can just wrap this up.
Okay, we'll let you go to bed shortly. I just wanted to underline one thing that you said, and it is that there are so many roles in this whole crypto space that are not and that are not technical and that are not even financial. If you can think of anything that people do, from graphic design to writing prose to whatever it is, there's a place for you in this emerging community. And don't hesitate to get involved just because you have a technical background. That's really important to understand. Tim, thank you so much for putting this together. Really enjoyed it.
Tim, thanks very much for the opportunity. Hopefully everybody keep learning lots about this. Take it a long way. Thanks a lot.
No. I mean, I can just to back you up there, and Peter, what you're saying. I'm a perfect example. And this is me saying about myself. I'm a monkey prodding in the mud in the darkness. That's all I am. And if I can get N99 to where it is now, and hey, that's exactly what you said. It's backing up the idea. I'm living proof of it. So anyone out there, like Peter said, anyone out there with an idea, that's the whole point of it. Come along. Push your ideas out there, and that's the whole point. It's just about sharing ideas. That's the exact essence of the Safe Network: sharing of ideas, planting a seed, and someone will do it. Because it's, that's the whole point of it. Well, like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight, and to you, Stephen, and to you, TJ, and to Peter and Catherine, thank you very much for your time. I know how precious all our times are, and like I say, and I'm looking forward to making this the first of many conversations, and I'm particularly fascinated, as you know, I'm particularly fascinated to see how this is going to really change the world, particularly in, as we were saying, places like India and Malaysia, and places that, right now we don't even think about, but these are where the effects are going to change. So, like I say, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight. Thank you very much for your time. And like I say, we'll make this the first of many. And well, for me here in Scotland, I like to say, life is people.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Tim.
Bye, Tim.